57 years before the Galactic Council destroyed Earth's diplomatic fleet, Captain Oh Seung-woo stood in a secret military base hidden deep under the mountains of Korea. The year was 1968, and Earth had just detected the first alien radio, signals from distant stars. Most people thought it was just natural space noise, but the world's governments knew better. Captain Oh Seung-woo was only 30 years old, but already one of Earth's best pilots and engineers. He had been chosen to lead humanity's most secret project. The Deep Space Initiative was so classified that even most world leaders did not know it existed. The mission was simple in words, but impossible in practice. Send ships to explore the empty darkness between galaxies IDR. Technology they were using had been developed by the smartest scientists on Earth, working in complete secrecy for 10 years. They had discovered how to fold space itself, creating tunnels through reality that could move ships faster than anyone thought possible. It was dangerous and untested, but Earth's leaders believed they needed to know what was out there in the dark. The first ship was called Wanderer, and it was unlike anything Earth had ever built. It was 3 miles long and 1 mile wide, built entirely in secret orbital shipyards that nobody was supposed to know about. The ship could carry 10,000 people and had the tools needed to build more ships from raw materials found in space. Captain Oh Seung-woo walked through the ship's corridors with his crew of volunteers, people who knew they might never see Earth again but wanted to explore the unknown anyway. They were scientists and soldiers and engineers and artists, people who believed that humanity's future lay among the stars, not trapped on one small planet. The launch happened on a dark night, when the moon was hidden by clouds. 5 ships left Earth's gravity and disappeared into folded space. Their destination was the void between the Milky Way galaxy and its nearest neighbor, a journey that would take them far beyond any star Earth had ever seen. The ships carried everything needed to survive and build and grow in the endless darkness. For the first year, they traveled through empty space, seeing nothing but distant galaxies that looked like tiny dots of light. Captain Oh Seung-woo kept detailed records of everything they found, but mostly they found nothing. The void was cold and dark and seemed completely lifeless. Then they discovered the ruins. The first ancient structure they found was floating alone in the darkness, a metal sphere the size of Earth's moon covered with symbols that hurt to look at. The sphere was millions of years old, built by creatures that had lived and died before Earth's sun was born. Inside, they found technology that made their best computers look like stone tools. Commander Nam Ji-hye was born on the ship 10 years after they left Earth. She had never seen a planet or breathed natural air, but she could think faster than any human who had ever lived. Her parents had used the ancient alien technology to enhance her brain and body, making her stronger and smarter than baseline humans. The alien technology was everywhere in the void, hidden cities floating between stars, ancient weapons that could crack planets, machines that could build anything from pure energy. The creatures who made these things had ruled the entire universe once, but they were gone now, leaving only their tools behind. Captain Oh Seung-woo realized that the Milky Way galaxy was not the center of everything. It was just one small part of something much bigger. The ancient aliens had called themselves the predecessors, and they had built an empire that stretched across every galaxy in the known universe. They had transcended physical existence itself, becoming beings of pure thought and energy. The void fleet grew slowly at first. One ship became 5, then 10, then 100. They found raw materials floating in the darkness, and used predecessor technology to build vessels that were more like living cities than ships. Each new ship was larger and more advanced than the last, powered by engines that drew energy from the birth and death of stars. Commander Nam Ji-hye took command of the newest ship when Captain Oh Seung-woo became too old for active duty. The ship was called Eternity, and it was 50 miles long with weapons that could destroy entire solar systems. The crew had been enhanced with predecessor technology, until they were barely human anymore. They could survive in vacuum, think across vast distances, and see through time itself. The Void Fleet had become something beyond human, but they still remembered where they came from. They monitored Earth's radio, signals, and watched as humanity made first contact with the aliens of the Milky Way. They tried to send warnings back to Earth, but the messages took decades to travel even through folded space. Captain Ro Sun-hee commanded the Intelligence Division, studying every alien species in the galaxy through sensors that could see across impossible distances. She watched as the Galactic Council contacted younger civilizations, promising friendship and cooperation. She also watched as those same civilizations vanished without explanation. Their planets turned to glass and ash. The pattern was always the same. The Council would approach a new species with gifts and promises of membership. They would study the new civilization for decades, learning their strengths and weaknesses. Then, when the time was right, they would invite the species to join them. The diplomatic missions never returned, and the home worlds were destroyed from orbit. Captain Ro Sun-hee sent report after report to the Void Fleet, command describing the Council's crimes. She had counted over 300 civilizations that had been destroyed in the past 1,000 years alone. The galaxy was ruled by monsters who killed anyone they could not control. The Void Fleet tried desperately to warn Earth, but their messages arrived too late, or were ignored by Earth's leaders who wanted to believe in peaceful contact with aliens. The diplomats on Earth thought the Void Fleet was being paranoid and aggressive. They believed that humanity could succeed where others had failed. Admiral Song Yejin was the current commander of the Void Fleet when Earth's diplomatic mission was finally launched. She had been enhanced so much that she was more machine than human, but she still felt love for the world that had given birth to her people. She knew exactly what would happen when Earth's ships reached the Council station. The Void Fleet had spent decades preparing for this moment. Their ships were hidden throughout the galaxy, watching and waiting for the Council to reveal their true nature. When the trap was finally sprung and Earth's diplomatic fleet was destroyed, the Void Fleet felt the psychic screams of their dying cousins across the emptiness of Space Admiral Song Yejin. Stood on the bridge of her flagship, a vessel so large it had its own gravity and weather systems. Around her, the enhanced humans of the Void Fleet prepared for war. They had learned to use predecessor weapons that could rewrite reality itself. There, ships could exist in multiple dimensions at once, and their armor was made from materials that could not be destroyed. The time for hiding was over. The Galactic Council had made their choice, and now they would face the consequences. The Void Fleet had grown from 5 ships to 10,000 vessels, each one more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen. They had weapons that could stop time, shields that could deflect the explosion of supernovas, and engines that could travel faster than thought itself. Captain Oh Seung-woo was still alive after all these years, his body kept young by predecessor technology that could extend life indefinitely. He walked slowly to the command center of the flagship, his old eyes burning with cold anger. The aliens had killed his people, his species, his world. Now they would learn what humanity was truly capable of when pushed beyond all limits. The order went out across the Void Fleet through channels that existed outside normal spaceships, that had been sleeping in the darkness between dimensions, suddenly roared to life. Engines that burned with the power of dying galaxies began to push vessels larger than moons toward the galaxy that had just made the worst mistake in its history. The Galactic Council thought they had destroyed humanity, but they had only awakened something that had been growing stronger for over 50 years. The Void Fleet was coming home, and they were bringing with them technology and weapons that would reshape the galaxy forever. The hunt was about to begin, and this time humanity would be the predator space. itself began to bend and twist as the Void fleet moved through folded reality, traveling distances that should have taken thousands of years in mere hours. They had learned patience during their decades in the Void, but now patience was no longer needed. The time for justice had finally arrived. Captain Lee Wubin walked slowly across the metal floor of his ship. The bridge was quiet, except for the soft sounds of machines working. He looked out the big window at the massive alien space station floating in the darkness of space. The station was bigger than any city on Earth, with thousands of lights blinking like stars. His hands were shaking a little, but not from fear. After 50 years of talking with aliens through radio messages and video calls, Earth was finally invited to join the Galactic Council. This was the biggest moment in human history. The moment when humanity would take its place among the stars with thousands of other alien races. Admiral Park Mi-young stood next to him, watching the alien station grow bigger as their ship moved closer. She had gray hair and kind eyes, but her face was serious today. She was the best diplomat Earth had ever produced, speaking 12 different alien languages and understanding their strange customs better than anyone else. Alive. The human ships looked small and weak next to the alien vessels floating around the station. Earth had sent its newest and best ships, but they seemed like toys compared to the massive alien warships. The human ships were painted white with blue stripes showing the Earth flag proudly on their sides. "We are almost there," Admiral Park said to Captain Lee Wubin. Her voice was calm, but he could hear something worried underneath. "Are all our ships ready?" "Yes," Admiral Lee Wubin replied, looking at his screen. "All 47 ships are in formation. Our weapons are powered down as requested by the Council, and our gift containers are ready to be presented." The gifts were special things from Earth that showed the best of human culture. Beautiful paintings and sculptures that took years to make, music from every country and time period that made people cry with joy, books of poetry and stories that captured the human heart, scientific discoveries that could help heal diseases and feed hungry people. Admiral Park had spent 10 years choosing these gifts. She wanted to show the aliens that humans were not just warriors but artists and thinkers and dreamers. She believed that if the aliens could understand human beauty, they would welcome Earth into their great civilization. Commander Kim Dae-ho was at the weapons station, even though all human weapons were turned off as a sign of peace. He was young with bright eyes that missed nothing. His job was to watch the alien ships and make sure everything was safe for the diplomatic mission. "Admiral, something is wrong," Commander Kim said quietly. "The alien ships around us have their weapons powered up and ready to fire. Their targeting systems are scanning our ships right now, Admiral." Park walked over to look at his screen. The display showed red dots all around them. Each red dot was an alien warship with guns pointed at the human fleet. She felt cold fear in her stomach, but kept her voice steady. "Maybe they are just being careful," she said. "This is an important day for them too. Keep watching, but do not do anything that might make them think we are dangerous. Commander." Kim nodded, but his hand stayed near the emergency button that would turn on their weapons if needed. He had studied every alien ship design for years, and something about this felt very wrong. The alien ships were not arranged like an honor guard, but like hunters surrounding prey. The human fleet moved closer to the giant space station. Millions of aliens lived and worked inside that station, making decisions that affected entire star systems. Earth was hoping to become part of that great government, to have a voice in the future of the galaxy. Captain Lee Wubin received a message from the alien station, telling him where to dock his ship. The alien voice sounded friendly and welcoming, but there was something cold about it, like ice, pretending to be warm. The other human ships were also getting docking instructions, spreading them out across different parts of the huge Station A's, the first human ships attached to the docking ports. Everything seemed normal. Alien workers helped connect the power cables and air tubes. Human diplomats stepped out of their ships carrying the precious gifts from Earth. They were wearing their best clothes and biggest smiles, ready to make history. Then the trap was revealed. Thousands of alien warships suddenly appeared from empty space like ghosts becoming solid. They had been hiding using technology that made them invisible, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The human fleet was completely surrounded by enemies. Commander Kim shouted a warning, but it was too late. Powerful energy weapons struck every human ship at the same time. The weapons did not destroy the ships, but sent electric pulses through them that turned off all the power and computers. The humans were helpless, floating in space like dead fish. Admiral Park watched in horror as her beautiful white ships went dark one by one. The crew members inside were still alive but trapped without power or weapons. The alien ships moved closer like sharks smelling blood, their weapons charged up again with a sound like thunder. The few human ships that still had some power tried to escape, but more alien vessels appeared to block their path. Bright beams of energy cut through human ships like knives through paper. Explosions lit up the darkness of space as Earth's finest vessels were destroyed without mercy. Inside the space station, human diplomats were grabbed by alien soldiers. The gifts from Earth were thrown on the floor and stepped on. Beautiful paintings were torn, and precious books were burned. The aliens laughed as they destroyed 50 years of careful preparation and hope. Admiral Park and the surviving human leaders were dragged into a huge chamber filled with aliens from across the galaxy. The alien leaders sat on tall, throne-like chairs, looking down at the humans with cold eyes. They were different shapes and sizes, but all of them looked at humans like they were looking at dangerous animals. The leader of the Galactic Council was a tall creature with 4 arms and eyes that glowed like fire. It spoke in perfect English, with a voice like breaking glass. "So the humans finally come to us," it said. "Just as we knew you would." Admiral Park stood up straight, even though her hands were tied behind her back. "Why did you do this?" she asked. "We came in peace. We brought gifts. We wanted to join your civilization and help make the galaxy better for everyone." The alien leader made a sound like laughing, but there was no joy in it. "We know exactly what humans are," it said. "We have studied your history for decades. We know about your wars, your violence, your endless fighting. You have spent thousands of years killing each other over resources and beliefs and territory." Other aliens in the chamber nodded their agreement. One creature with multiple heads spoke up. "Your species destroyed entire forests and poisoned your own air and water. You created weapons that could destroy your whole planet and almost used them. You are too dangerous to exist among civilized beings." Admiral Park felt anger rising in her chest, but forced herself to stay calm. "That is our past," she said. "We learned from our mistakes. We grew beyond our violent nature. We have been peaceful for 50 years since we first made contact with you." The council leader stood up from its throne, towering over the humans like a mountain. "Your 50 years of peace mean nothing compared to your thousands of years of war," it said. "We cannot risk letting such a violent species spread across the galaxy. The other civilizations must be protected from you." As it spoke, more aliens entered the chamber, carrying screens that showed space battles happening near Earth. Human colonies on Mars and the Moon were being bombed from orbit. Great cities that had taken decades to build were turning to fire and ash. Women and children were running and screaming as alien weapons turned their homes to dust. Admiral Park felt tears on her face as she watched her people dying. "No," she whispered. "Please stop this. You do not understand what you are doing." But the aliens continued their attack. Earth itself appeared, on the screen surrounded by hundreds of alien warships. The beautiful blue planet that had given birth to humanity was about to become a graveyard. The aliens were going to kill every human being in the universe. The council leader looked at Admiral Park with something like pity in its glowing eyes. "You will live long enough to watch your species die completely," it said. "Then you will understand why this was necessary. The galaxy will be safer when humanity is just a memory." Admiral Park looked around the chamber at all the alien faces filled with hate and fear. They had planned this from the very beginning. The 50 years of peaceful contact had all been a lie. They had been studying humanity, not to understand them, but to find the best way to destroy them. But then Admiral Park began to smile. The aliens looked confused as tears ran down her face, but her expression became almost happy. The council leader demanded to know why she was smiling when her entire species was about to be extinct. Admiral Park looked up at the towering alien with pity in her eyes, instead of fear. "You made one mistake," she said quietly. "You assumed that the ships you destroyed were all humanity had. You never asked about the other humans, the ones who left Earth before you ever contacted us." The council leader felt a chill of fear for the first time in centuries. What other humans? It demanded. "There are no human colonies beyond your solar system. We have watched every star system for light. Years around Earth." Admiral Park's smile grew wider as she thought about the secret that humanity had kept for over 50 years. "The Void Fleet," she whispered. "Ships that left Earth decades ago to explore the dark spaces between galaxies. They have been watching and waiting and learning. They know what you really are." The aliens in the chamber began talking nervously among themselves. They had never heard of any Void Fleet there. The first sign that something was wrong came from monitoring station Alpha 7 on the edge of Council space. Lieutenant Commander Vex was a four-armed alien with purple skin who had been watching the empty darkness between galaxies for 20 years. His job was boring but important, watching for threats that might come from outside their territory. The sensors suddenly went crazy, showing energy readings that were impossible. Every screen in the monitoring station turned bright white and started making loud warning sounds. Lieutenant Commander Vex tried to adjust the equipment thinking it was broken, but the readings kept getting stronger. The energy signatures were moving toward Council space at speeds that broke every known law of physics. Whatever was out there was bigger and more powerful than anything in the galaxy. Lieutenant Commander Vex sent emergency messages to Council headquarters, but before he could explain what was happening, the monitoring station simply vanished. General Quan Minsu stood in the command center of the Void Fleet flagship, watching displays that showed every Council ship and base in the galaxy. His eyes had been enhanced with predecessor technology that let him see across vast distances and process information faster than the most advanced computers. The Council forces were spread out across thousands of star systems, protecting their territory from threats that no longer mattered. They had positioned their fleets to fight wars against primitive species with slow ships and weak weapons. They had no idea what was coming for them. General Quan Minsu had been planning this attack for 30 years, studying every alien ship design and mapping every weakness. The Council had made their military strategy based on fighting enemies who used technology similar to their own. They were not prepared for weapons that operated outside the normal laws of reality. Captain Baye Hyejin commanded the stealth division of the Void Fleet ships that existed, partially outside normal space. Her vessels could phase through solid matter, becoming invisible and intangible when they chose to. The Council's sensors could not detect them because they were not entirely in the same dimension. Captain Baye Hyejin had positioned her ships inside major Council installations months ago, waiting for the order to attack. Her soldiers could walk through walls and survive in any environment. Their enhanced bodies needed no air or food and could repair themselves from almost any injury. The Council leaders were celebrating in their great chamber, toasting the successful destruction of humanity with drinks made from the tears of conquered species. They had killed billions of humans in a single day and were planning to claim Earth's resources for themselves. High Counselor Zeth was a massive creature with tentacles instead of arms and a mouth full of sharp teeth. He had ordered the genocide personally and felt proud of his work. One more dangerous species had been eliminated from the galaxy, making it safer for the superior council races. Then reality began to tear apart around them. Massive ships started appearing inside the council station, passing through the walls like ghosts, becoming solid. The ships were dark black with energy crackling along their hulls like captured lightning. They were larger than anything the council had ever built and seemed to hurt the eyes to look at directly. Admiral Song. Yejin stepped onto the council chamber, her enhanced body glowing with internal power. She moved with impossible grace. Each step perfectly controlled her modified bones and muscles, making her stronger than any alien warrior. The air around her shimmered with energy that made the aliens afraid to get too close, behind Admiral Song. Yejin came soldiers who had been born in the void between galaxies, humans who were no longer entirely human. Their skin was pale white, and their eyes glowed with inner light. They carried weapons that seemed to be made of crystallized starlight and wore armor that looked like it was carved from solid darkness. High Counselor Zeth tried to activate the emergency shields that protected the council chamber, but the controls would not respond. The security systems had been infiltrated years ago by Void Fleet agents who could phase through any barrier. Every weapon, every defense, every escape route had been quietly sabotaged. The council guards tried to attack the human intruders, but their energy weapons passed harmlessly through the enhanced soldiers. The humans moved like liquid mercury, flowing around attacks and striking back with weapons that could cut through any material. The alien guards were defeated in seconds without managing to hurt a single human, Admiral Song. Yejin looked at High Counselor Zeth with cold contempt in her glowing eyes. She spoke in perfect alien languages that she had learned by directly interfacing with captured council databases. "You have committed genocide against my people," she said, in a voice like grinding metal. "Now you will face judgment." High Counselor Zeth tried to speak, but found that his voice was gone. The human technology was affecting his nervous system, making it impossible to communicate. Admiral Song Yejin continued speaking, her words echoing strangely in the chamber, as if they came from multiple dimensions at once. "The Void Fleet has been watching you for decades," she said, "recording every crime, every murder, every innocent species. You have destroyed. We know about the Keth people who were obliterated for refusing to give up their children. We know about the Moor civilization that was poisoned because they would not abandon their religion." The council members looked around in fear as holographic displays appeared, showing their victims over the centuries. Hundreds of species that had been wiped out for the crime of being different or independent. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Admiral Song Yejin raised her hand, and the chamber filled with the sounds of dying civilizations, the last words of species leaders begging for mercy, the cries of children as their worlds burned, the silence that followed complete extinction. The council had killed trillions of innocent beings over thousands of years. "You are not the rulers of this galaxy," Admiral Song Yejin said. "You are parasites feeding on the blood of the innocent. But your time is over. The age of the council ends today, and the age of justice begins outside the station." The rest of the Void Fleet was revealing itself, ships uncloaking from folded space and dimensional hiding places. There were thousands of vessels, each one bristling with weapons that could crack planets and shields that could withstand the death of stars. The Council's defense fleet tried to respond, but their ships were like insects fighting dragons. Human vessels that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously could not be targeted by weapons designed for normal space. The Council's most powerful warships were destroyed before they could fire a single shot. Captain Im Soo-young led the assault on Military Base Prime, the Council's greatest fortress which had never fallen in 10,000 years of galactic warfare. Her ship's weapons ignored every defense passing through shields and armor, as if they were not there. The base's quantum barriers proved useless against technology that operated outside physics. Admiral Cho Ji-hoon broadcast a message to every world in the galaxy explaining who the Void Fleet was and why they had come. The message could not be blocked or stopped because it was transmitted through dimensions that the Council did not know existed. People of the galaxy, he said, in a voice that reached across impossible distances. We are the human Void Fleet, the children of Earth who left home before the aliens came. We have watched you suffer under Council rule for too long. The time of liberation has arrived across the galaxy. Similar scenes played out as the Void Fleet revealed the true extent of their power. Council fleets that had conquered hundreds of worlds found themselves helpless against enemies who could appear from nowhere and vanish just as quickly. Every battle was over before it began. The Council's scientists tried desperately to understand how humanity had acquired such advanced technology. Their instruments detected energy patterns that should not exist, weapons that violated the fundamental laws of reality itself. It was as if the humans had learned to use the universe itself as a tool. The truth was even stranger than they imagined. The Void Fleet had found the ruins of the predecessors, an ancient race that had ruled the entire universe millions of years ago. While the Council had built their civilization on conquest and oppression, humans had learned from beings who had transcended physical existence entirely. The remaining Council forces began to retreat, but there was nowhere to run. The Void Fleet's ships could travel faster than light, faster than hyperspace, faster than thought itself. They appeared wherever their enemies tried to hide, bringing swift justice for 50,000 years of oppression. The hunt had begun, and this time humanity was the apex predator. The emergency signals went out across the galaxy faster than any ship could fly. Every Council military base received the same desperate message from headquarters. All available forces were to converge on Council Prime immediately to deal with the human threat that had somehow appeared from nowhere. Fleet Admiral Korth commanded the Council's 3rd battle group, consisting of 50,000 warships that had never lost a battle. He was a massive creature with thick armor plating and multiple heads, each one specialized for different aspects of warfare. His fleet had conquered entire sectors of space and crushed dozens of rebellions. Admiral Korth was confident that whatever these humans had brought to the fight, it would not matter against the overwhelming power of Council military. Might he had seen the reports about strange energy signatures and impossible ship designs, but he believed numbers would win the day as they always had. The 3rd battle group dropped out of hyperspace near the Council station, expecting to find the human ships surrounded and outnumbered. Instead, they found empty space where the greatest fortress in the galaxy should have been. The massive station that had taken centuries to build was simply gone. Without a trace, Commander Park Tae-hyun watched the arriving Council fleet from his position aboard a void ship that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously. His vessel was larger than most moons, but appeared as nothing more than empty space to the alien sensors. The Council ships were looking right at him without seeing anything at all. The void ship's weapons were charged and ready, each one capable of destroying entire solar systems. They drew their power from the birth and death of stars, channeling energy that existed outside normal time and space. Commander Park Tae-hyun had been waiting for this moment for 20 years. The Council fleet began spreading out, searching for enemies they could not detect. Their sensors showed nothing but empty space. Yet their commanders knew the humans had to be somewhere nearby. The alien ships moved in perfect formation, following battle tactics that had worked for thousands of years. Then the Void Fleet decloaked all around them. The first thing the Council forces saw were ships that seemed to be made of crystallized darkness vessels so large they had their own gravity fields and atmosphere. The human ships appeared from folded space, like nightmares becoming real their hulls, crackling with energy that hurt to look at. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. Commander Park Tae-hyun's ship fired a single shot that passed through 50 council vessels in a straight line. The weapon existed in multiple dimensions at once, ignoring shields and armor completely. The alien ships simply ceased to exist, turned into particles of dust that scattered in the void, Captain. Im Soo-young led the assault on Military Base Prime, the Council's primary fortress that had never fallen. In 10,000 years, the base was protected by shields that could withstand the explosion of supernovas and weapons that could crack moons in half. None of it mattered. Captain Im Soo-young's ship fired weapons that reached backward through time, striking the base before the shots were even fired. The quantum barriers that protected the fortress proved useless against attacks that came from directions that did not exist in normal space. The base's defensive systems tried to respond, but their targeting computers could not lock onto enemies that existed partially outside reality. The human ships phased in and out of normal space like ghosts, becoming solid only long enough to deliver devastating attacks. Inside the base, alien commanders watched their greatest weapons fail completely. Energy beams that should have vaporized entire fleets passed harmlessly through the human ships. Missiles equipped with planet-killing warheads detonated uselessly against shields that seemed to be made of compressed space itself. General Kwon Min-soo coordinated the attack from his flagship, watching as Council forces across the galaxy were systematically destroyed. The aliens had spread their military power too thin, believing that their superior numbers and technology would be enough to handle any threat. The Void Fleet had spent decades studying every Council ship design, learning their weaknesses and planning counters for every weapon. Every battle was won before it began, because the humans knew exactly what their enemies would do and how to defeat it. Captain Yoon Dong-yuk specialized in hunting fleeing Council leaders who tried to escape justice. His ship could track targets across dimensional barriers and through time itself, making escape impossible. The enhanced sensors could follow a single alien across the entire galaxy, no matter where they tried to hide. High Counselor Zeth had managed to escape from Council Prime in a small ship, hoping to reach a secret base on the edge of galaxy. But Captain Yoon Dong-hyuk was already waiting when the alien arrived. The human ship materialized around the fleeing vessel, trapping it like an insect in Amber One. By one, the architects of genocide were captured, brought before human tribunals, to face judgment for their crimes. The evidence against them was overwhelming, recorded over decades by Void Fleet agents who had infiltrated Council space. The galaxy's younger species watched in amazement as their oppressors were defeated by creatures. They had never heard of human ships appeared in their skies not as conquerors, but as liberators offering protection and freedom from Council rule on the world of Kesh. The reptilian people had been enslaved for 300 years, forced to mine precious metals for their Council masters. When the human ships arrived, the slave drivers fled in terror, leaving behind millions of workers who had never known freedom. Lieutenant Jang Mik-young led the liberation forces on Kesh, her soldiers moving through the mining facilities like avenging angels. Their enhanced bodies could survive in any environment, and their weapons could cut through the strongest alien materials. The slave camps were destroyed, and the workers were freed in a single day, but not all aliens welcomed humanity's intervention. Some species had grown rich and powerful by serving the Council, acting as overseers and enforcers for the oppressive regime. They had profited from the suffering of weaker civilizations and did not want to lose their privileged positions. The Vrex Consortium was a collection of merchant species that had made fortunes selling weapons to the Council and buying slaves from conquered worlds when human ships appeared in their territory. They formed a defensive alliance, hoping to preserve their profitable arrangement with the oppressors. Admiral Lee Se-yun dealt with the Vrex Consortium, personally demonstrating that human mercy had limits. Her ship could alter reality itself, turning weapons against their users, and transforming defensive systems into prisons for those who operated them. The Vrex fleet was composed of 1,000 ships armed with weapons bought from the Council's own armories. They believed their superior numbers, and advanced technology would be enough to drive away the human intruders. They were catastrophically wrong. Admiral Lee Se-hyun's ship existed in a state of controlled temporal flux, able to move backward and forward through time at will. She attacked the Vrex fleet yesterday while fighting them today, making their defensive strategies completely useless. The alien weapons turned into flowers when fired. Their targeting systems began playing music instead of tracking enemies. Their shields became transparent walls that showed embarrassing memories to anyone who looked at them. The Vrex commanders found themselves trapped in ships that had become art installations. Within hours, the entire consortium surrendered, begging for mercy and promising to give up their slave trading operations. Admiral Lee Se-hyun accepted their surrender, but made it clear that they would be watched closely. Any return to their old ways would result in consequences they could not imagine. Across the galaxy, the pattern repeated as Council allies and supporters found themselves facing human justice. The Void Fleet had infinite patience, but no tolerance for those who chose to profit from oppression. The hunt continued relentlessly, as every Council leader was tracked, down, captured, or killed. The vast empire that had ruled through fear and violence was reduced to scattered refugees, hiding in the dark corners of space begging for mercy. They had never shown their own victims. But the Void Fleet's mission was only beginning. The destruction of the Council was just the first step in a much larger plan that would reshape galactic civilization completely. The humans had not come just to destroy the old order, but to build something better in its place. The age of oppression was ending and the real work was about to begin. The systematic destruction of the Galactic Council took 3 months, but to the aliens being hunted, it felt like an eternity. Every world that had participated in genocide found void ships materializing in their skies, like dark angels bringing judgment from the stars. The humans did not simply destroy everything they found. Instead, they moved with careful precision, separating the guilty from the innocent and ensuring that justice was served properly. Lieutenant Jang Mik-young commanded boarding parties that could phase through solid matter to capture enemy ships without destroying them. Her soldiers moved like spirits through alien vessels, stunning crews with weapons that disrupted nervous systems and downloading their computer databases. Every piece of information about Council atrocities was carefully recorded for the trials that would follow. The enhanced humans could survive in any environment, their modified bodies needing no air or protection from radiation or extreme temperatures. They walked through the vacuum of space as easily as breathing, carrying weapons that seemed to be made of crystallized light. Lieutenant Jang Mik-young had been born on a void ship and had never seen a planet until she began liberating Council worlds. Her pale skin glowed with internal energy, and her eyes could see across impossible distances. She could phase through walls and move faster than alien eyes could track. The Void Fleet had learned patience during their decades in empty space. Rather than rushing to destroy their enemies, they methodically dismantled every aspect of Council power. Trade routes were severed, communication networks were captured, and military installations were converted into human bases. Each captured facility revealed more evidence of Council crimes, database after database filled with records of genocide, slavery, and oppression. The aliens had kept detailed records of their victims, including the last words of dying species leaders and videos of worlds being destroyed from orbit. Captain Yoon Dong-hyuk specialized in hunting down fleeing Council leaders who thought they could escape to remote star systems. His ship could track targets across dimensional barriers and through time itself, following psychic impressions and energy signatures across vast distances. The Council leaders had scattered in all directions when their empire began to collapse. Some tried to hide on primitive worlds where they thought human sensors could not find them. Others fled to secret bases built in the dark spaces between stars, hoping to wait out the storm. None of them escaped. Captain Yoon Dong-hyuk found High Admiral Vrex hiding on a frozen moon in an abandoned mining station. The alien had been one of the Council's most ruthless military commanders, responsible for destroying over 50 civilizations in his long career. The human ship materialized inside the mining station, passing through solid rock like it was made of air. Captain Yoon Dong-hyuk walked through the corridors, his enhanced senses tracking the alien's fear. Pheromones through the recycled air. High Admiral Vrex tried to fight using weapons he had stolen from Council armories, but the energy beams passed harmlessly through the human's enhanced body. Captain Yoon Dong-hyuk moved with impossible speed, disarming the alien and binding him with restraints made of crystallized force. "You cannot do this to me," the alien commander screamed. "I am a High Admiral of the Galactic Council. I have diplomatic immunity under galactic law." Captain Yoon Dong-hyuk looked at the creature with cold contempt. "Your council no longer exists," he said in perfect alien speech. "Your laws died with the civilizations you murdered. You will face trial for your crimes, and the victims will have justice." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out as every council leader was captured one by one. The Void Fleet had compiled detailed lists of war criminals and was working through them systematically. No one who had ordered genocide would escape judgment. The younger species of the galaxy watched in amazement as their oppressors were brought low by creatures they had never heard of. Human ships appeared at worlds that had been enslaved for centuries, offering freedom and protection to anyone who wanted it. On the world of Teth, the insectoid people had been forced to fight in gladiatorial contests for the entertainment of council nobles. When human liberators arrived, they found massive arenas filled with the bones of warriors who had died for alien amusement. Commander Kim Dae-ho led the liberation of Teth, his soldiers moving through the slave pens like avenging spirits. Their weapons could cut through any material, and their armor could deflect energy, beams that would vaporize normal matter. The council overseers tried to kill their slaves rather than let them be freed, but human intervention came faster than alien reflexes could respond. The enslaved fighters found themselves protected by shields of pure energy, while their tormentors were stunned and captured. "We are free," one of the insectoid warriors whispered, unable to believe what was happening. After 300 years of bondage, they had given up hope of ever seeing their families. Again, Commander Kim Dae-ho knelt beside the injured alien warrior, his enhanced body glowing with healing energy that could repair damaged tissue. "You were always free," he said gently. "We just helped you remember it." The liberation continued across thousands of worlds. As the Void Fleet dismantled the infrastructure of oppression, slave markets were destroyed, weapons factories were converted to produce medicine and food, prison planets became rehabilitation centers where former guards learned to live without violence. But not every species welcomed the changes. Some aliens had become so accustomed to the council system that they feared what would replace it. They formed resistance groups trying to restore the old order and bring back the familiar tyranny. The Zorth Empire had served as the Council's enforcers for over 1,000 years. Their warrior culture was built around conquering weaker species and taking slaves to work in their factories. When humans arrived in their territory, they declared total war against the liberators. Admiral Lee Se-hyun responded to the Zorth challenge personally, bringing a fleet of ships that existed in a state of controlled chaos. Her vessels could alter reality itself, making weapons malfunction and turning armor into decorative art. The Zorth fleet was massive, consisting of 10,000 warships crewed by warriors who had never known defeat. They attacked the human ships with berserker fury, firing every weapon they had and ramming when their guns ran out of power. It made no difference. Admiral Lee Se-hyun's ship turned the Zorth weapons into musical instruments that played gentle melodies instead of firing death beams. Their targeting computers began showing cooking recipes instead of enemy positions. Their shields became transparent walls that displayed their most embarrassing childhood memories. Within hours, the entire Zorth fleet surrendered, not because they were defeated in battle, but because they could not stop laughing at what their ships had become. The warrior culture that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries was reduced to a cosmic joke. Admiral Lee Se-hyun addressed the Zorth commanders through communication systems that had been turned into karaoke machines. "Your time as oppressors is over," she said, while rainbow-colored lights flashed around her image. "You can choose to join the new galactic civilization or remain here as entertainment. Some alien species tried to negotiate, claiming they had only followed council orders because they had no choice. The humans listened to these pleas with patience, but also with perfect knowledge of who was telling the truth and who was lying. The Void Fleet had recorded everything over decades of careful observation. They knew which species had eagerly participated in genocide and which had been forced to comply through threats. Every decision, every action, every crime had been documented with perfect accuracy. Those who had truly been victims were offered help and protection. Those who had chosen to become monsters were offered a choice between justice and redemption. Most chose to face trial and accept whatever punishment the evidence demanded. The hunt continued until every war criminal had been found, and every victim had been freed. The Council's empire of 50,000 years was completely dismantled, its leaders scattered to the winds and its power broken forever. But destruction was only the beginning. The real test would be building something, better to take its place. The trials began on Earth itself in massive courts built from predecessor technology that could accommodate beings from across the galaxy. The structures existed in multiple dimensions, simultaneously allowing millions of species to participate. While occupying the same physical space, Chief Justice Park Young-ho presided over the most important legal proceedings in galactic history. His mind had been enhanced with ancient alien technology that allowed him to perceive truth itself, making lies impossible in his presence. The trials were broadcast throughout known space, ensuring transparency and justice. The evidence presented was overwhelming. Council leaders had kept detailed records of their crimes, including video documentation of genocides and audio recordings of their planning meetings. They had been proud of their work and eager to preserve it for future generations of oppressors. High Counselor Zeth sat in the defendant's chair, his multiple tentacles bound with restraints made of crystallized energy. The creature who had ordered the deaths of billions looked small and pathetic under the lights of the courtroom. His glowing eyes had lost their fire, replaced by the dull stare of someone who knew their fate was sealed. Chief Justice Park Young-ho read the charges in a voice that carried across dimensions. War crimes, genocide, slavery, forced labor, systematic oppression, and crimes against the fundamental dignity of sapient life. The list went on for hours, covering 50,000 years of atrocities. The victims were allowed to speak first. Representatives from every species that had suffered under council rule came forward to tell their stories. The courtroom filled with voices speaking in hundreds of languages, all translated simultaneously by predecessor technology. A representative of the Keth people described how council forces had poisoned their world's atmosphere because they refused to abandon their children to alien re-education camps. An elder from the Moor civilization explained how their entire species had been sterilized because their religious beliefs conflicted with council doctrine. High Counselor Zeth tried to defend himself, claiming that everything the council had done was necessary for galactic stability. He argued that younger species were too violent and unpredictable to be allowed freedom. That firm control was the only way to prevent chaos. Chief Justice Park Young-ho listened to these arguments with perfect patience, then responded with questions that cut to the heart of the matter. Who gave you the right to decide which species deserved to exist? He asked. Why was your judgment more valuable than the lives of trillions of innocent beings? The trials revealed something unexpected. Many species that had served the Council had been victims themselves forced into oppression by leaders who ruled through fear and manipulation. Entire civilizations had been turned into weapons against their will, threatened with extinction. If they refused to participate in genocide, Admiral Kim Hyeon proposed a radical solution. Rather than destroying entire civilizations for the crimes of their leaders, humanity would offer redemption to those willing to embrace a new way of life. Species that demonstrated genuine remorse and commitment to peace would be given a chance to rebuild. The process was not easy or quick. Many alien societies had been built around conquest and oppression for thousands of years, changing such deep-rooted cultures required patience and wisdom, but the Void Fleet had both in abundance. The Vrex merchants who had profited from slavery were required to use their wealth to build hospitals and schools on the worlds they had exploited former Council. Enforcers became peacekeepers, protecting the same species they had once oppressed. The transformation was slow, but genuine. Captain Oh Sung-woo, now more energy than matter after decades of enhancement, established the new galactic government based on principles the Council had never understood. Instead of ruling through fear, humanity would lead by example, showing that strength and compassion could exist together. The new system was built on the foundation that every sapient being had inherent worth regardless of their species' technology level or cultural development. No civilization had the right to judge another's worthiness to exist, and cooperation was always preferable to conquest. The Galactic Assembly met on Earth in chambers that existed across multiple dimensions. Representatives from every known species could participate equally regardless of their size, environmental needs, or method of communication. The predecessor technology made perfect translation possible. The first law passed by the Assembly was simple but revolutionary. The Sapient Rights Declaration stated that all intelligent beings had the right to life, liberty, and self-determination. No species could be enslaved, conquered, or destroyed for any reason. The law applied to everyone without exception. Implementation required the complete restructuring of galactic civilization. Trade networks that had been built on exploitation were rebuilt on fair exchange. Scientific research that had focused on weapons development was redirected toward healing and exploration. The transformation took decades, but gradually the galaxy began to heal from millennia of oppression. Art and music flourished as cultures learned from each other without fear. Exploration resumed as species worked together to unlock the mysteries of the universe. Earth became the